I didn't see the floor coming. One second, I was walking toward the graduation stage. The next, I was staring at the gymnasium lights, listening to everyone else gasp except the people who should have been there for me. That moment, the drop, the blackout, the sudden silence became the line dividing my life into before and after. And strangely, the collapse wasn't even the part that hurt the most. What came after did. My name is Lena Morris, and I grew up believing strength meant silence. And love meant earning your place at the table. For 24 years, I carried roles I didn't choose. The responsible one. The fixer. The emotional buffer. The one who didn't need softness because I could handle anything. At least, that's what my parents told me each time they handed me another responsibility. I grew up in a quiet Virginia suburb where houses looked warm from the outside porch lights glowing. Laughter drifting from open windows. But inside ours, it felt like I was standing outside a locked door. Everyone else had the key to. My sister. Grace was the center of my mother's gravity. Sensitive, delicate, a child who feels too deeply. Mom always said. But the truth was simpler. Grace demanded and Mom delivered. My father wasn't much different. He'd pat my shoulder and say, "You're the strong one, Lena. You don't need all that fuss." I didn't realize fuss meant affection. Birthdays told the whole story. Grace had parties bursting with color, noise, and love. Mine were fine. A cupcake, a polite smile, and the same tired line. "We'll make it special next year." But next year never changed. By my teens, I became the invisible backbone of the family. I covered for Grace when she forgot deadlines, when she crashed the car, when she broke things she didn't want to admit to. I helped with bills when Mom and Dad fell behind. I took a job at 16 and another at 17 because I told myself it was temporary. But temporary stretched into years. When I finally left for college, breathing felt different. Boston gave me space I didn't know humans needed. I worked 2 jobs, studied until sunrise, but it was my life. Still, the calls from home never stopped. Grace is having a hard month again. We're short on the electricity bill. Can you loan us a little until next week? And every time, like muscle memory, I sent whatever I had. Sometimes even what I didn't. Still, I pushed on class after class, shift after shift, because graduation felt like proof that everything I sacrificed meant something. But my body had other plans. A few months before the ceremony, the warnings started. Dizzy spells, tremors in my hands, headaches that pulsed behind my eyes like a warning siren. My coworker, Nora, pointed it out first. "Lena, you're not okay," she'd say, pressing a cup of tea into my hands. But I always waved it off. "Just tired," I said. But tired didn't cover it. I was on the edge of collapse long before the ground rushed up to meet me. The night before graduation. I felt something strange, a pressure inside my chest, like my lungs were welded shut. I ignored it. I had ignored everything else, after all. Then came the ceremony, bright sun, shimmering gowns, students glowing with pride. I scanned the crowd for my family, searching row after row, but their seats were empty. A text came 5 minutes before my name was called. "Traffic. We'll get there soon." Then another. "Go ahead without us." I swallowed the ache and stood when they called Lena Morris. My legs wobbled. The walk to the stage felt too long, too bright, too loud. Halfway up the steps, the world tilted sideways. The applause faded. Colors smeared together, and then there was nothing. When I woke in the ER, cold air stung my skin. Machines beeped steadily. A nurse adjusted my four. A doctor leaned close and said, "You collapsed from severe exhaustion. You're lucky you weren't alone," croaked. The only question that mattered. Did anyone call my family? He hesitated. We tried. We didn't get a response. Hours later, my phone buzzed again. A notification. A tag. A photo. My family. In the backyard. Smiling around the grill. Caption, "Family Day without the drama." I stared at it until the screen blurred. That was the moment I realized I didn't collapse because I was weak. I collapsed because I'd spent years being strong for people. who wouldn't even show up. And that truth was only the beginning. Asterisk, 3 days after I was discharged. Weakened, sore, and walking, like my legs were borrowed from someone else. The storm hit, my apartment was quiet, too quiet. The evening sun stretched soft gold across my bed sheets. I was halfway through reading my discharge instructions when my phone buzzed. Once, twice, then nonstop buzz, buzz, buzz. It rattled against the nightstand. Like it wanted to break through the metal dot at first, I ignored it. I was too tired to talk, too tired to explain, too tired to pretend I wasn't hurt, but the buzzing wouldn't stop. When I finally picked it up, the screen showed something unbelievable. 76 missed calls. Mom, Dad, home. Grace. Mom, again. Grace again. Dozens of messages filled the screen. Why aren't you answering? This is serious. You need to call us now. Grace is in trouble. We need you. Pick up. My stomach tightened, not in fear, but in recognition. Of course. Of course, it was about Grace. It was always about Grace. I kept scrolling until I reached the earlier messages. And there it was, a picture of a loan document. My name, my signature. Except not my signature. They had scanned my old signature from a rental form I signed years earlier. Copied it, used it, submitted it, they forged me. For money they needed. For debt they created. For a crisis Grace caused. My breath froze. My heart didn't. It cracked in a clean, sharp line. They didn't call when I collapsed. They didn't check when I vanished. They didn't show up when I fainted at graduation. But now they needed something. I typed one message to the only person who ever truly showed up for me. Can you come over? I need you. Nora arrived 20 minutes later, hair still tied from work, hands full of soup containers and worry. She read my screen. Her jaw tightened until I thought it might break. Lena, this isn't a mistake. This is fraud. The word hit me like a blow. Fraud. Illegal, unforgivable, and yet so predictable. Because for years, I'd been the soft landing for everyone else's mess. Not this time. Nora sat beside me, steady and warm, and said, "We're fixing this. But we're fixing it for you, not them." For the first time in my life, someone stood with me instead of on me. She helped me call a financial attorney. I held the phone with trembling hands. He examined the documents, the signatures, the messages. His voice was calm but firm. "You don't owe this money. What they did is a crime. If they pressure you, you can pursue legal protection." Something inside me, something tightly wound, snapped loose. By morning, the calls started again. I put the phone on speaker. Mom's voice exploded through the line. "Lena, finally. Do you know how stressed we are?" I answered quietly. "I was in the hospital." A pause. Then she brushed it aside. "Yes, well, but Grace is in trouble. We need you to call the bank." Dad's voice cut in, angry and desperate. "You need to sign. They won't proceed without you." My chest felt strangely calm, like a sea after a storm. "Dad," I said softly, "you used my signature without permission." Silence. A heavy, guilty kind. Mom jumped in, her voice sharp. "We did it because you're responsible. Grace couldn't handle it." Nora's eyes widened beside me. There it was again, the same excuse, the same manipulation, the same pattern dressed in guilt. I inhaled slowly. "I'm not signing anything." Dad snapped, "You have to." "I don't," I said. "And I won't." Mom's voice cracked into desperation. "If you don't help us, everything falls apart." I closed my eyes and said the words that finally freed me. I spoke to an attorney. "What you did is illegal. If you pressure me again, I'll take legal action." Dead silence. Then Dad snarled, "You're threatening your own family." "I'm protecting myself," I replied. For the first time in my life, I meant it. I ended the call. The sound of the disconnect was the cleanest thing I'd ever heard. The next few weeks felt like stepping into someone else's life, someone lighter, freer, someone I had buried under years of responsibility. My recovery wasn't dramatic, didn't come with epiphanies or fireworks. It came quietly, in small moments that felt like new beginnings. I slept for the first time in years. I ate meals without rushing. I breathed without a weight on my chest. Therapy became my anchor. I talked. I cried. I unlearned. I rebuilt. I relearned what enough feels like. News from home reached me in pieces. The loan defaulted. The bank got involved. Grace had to face the consequences herself. For once, my absence didn't break anything, simply made space for truth. Meanwhile, my own world grew gentler. I moved into a small studio where sunlight spilled across the floor every morning. I found a new job where my supervisor insisted I take real breaks. Some evenings, I walked home past blooming trees and thought, this what living feels like. I made boundaries, real ones I could hold. I removed myself from every automatic payment tied to home. I changed passwords, I updated documents. I protected the parts of my life I finally understood were worth protecting. And slowly, my body forgave me. The shaking stopped. The dizziness eased. My heart stopped racing. One evening, Nora and I sat on the apartment steps, watching the sky fade into violet. She nudged my shoulder and said, "You're different." "I feel different," I admitted. "You're lighter. I'm freer." A quiet smile settled on her face. "You deserve this." No one had ever said that to me before. Not in a way that felt true. Months passed. Then one morning, walking to work with warm sunlight on my face, I realized something. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for approval, not for gratitude, not for love that never came. I was living my own life. Entirely mine. Sometimes, I think back to the moment I collapsed on the graduation stage. My body gave out because I couldn't let myself break on purpose. It chose for me. It forced me to stop, to see, to walk away. And now, standing in a life I built with my own hands. Surrounded by people who show up without being asked, I understand something clearly. Choosing yourself isn't betrayal. Choosing yourself is survival. If this story touched a part of you, tell me in the comments. And if you've ever had to rebuild your life from the ground up, remember, you're not alone. Stay with me for the next part of the journey.